Hello everyone, Earl Henderson, Primordial Defense. Thank you for watching. I have another Monday quarterback video for you. I'm going to play this video and talk about things that are going on to better explain what's going on and talk about things that I think that are being done right and or done wrong. Without further ado, here we go.
Hello everyone, I'm Stephen Greenlee, Public Information Officer for the Reno Police Department. This critical incident community briefing is intended to inform you of an incident that occurred in the city of Reno involving officers with the Reno Police Department. You're about to see relevant video footage and learn about other evidence and police procedures related to this case, so you have a better understanding of the events of that day based on what we know right now. This video is not intended to draw any conclusions on whether or not the involved officers acted consistently with our policies or the law. These conclusions will come after all facts are known and the investigation is complete. A word of caution, the images and information you're about to see may be disturbing. When a police officer uses force to arrest a suspect or to defend themselves or others, it can be graphic and difficult to watch. In addition, there may be strong language used by those in this video. Viewer discretion is advised, especially for young children and sensitive viewers. Uniformed Reno police officers who have regular contact with the public are equipped with body-worn cameras which are generally affixed to the front of the officer's uniform. The camera captures video 30 seconds before. This feature is designed to record incidents when an officer does not have the time to act.
My name is Oliver Miller. I'm a Deputy Chief with the Reno Police Department. Anytime an officer is involved in a shooting, it's our policy to have the incident investigated by an outside agency. Investigations are complete and thorough. Available recordings and an example of facts and evidence for criminal review. The district attorney, after the review, the video provided in this briefing was captured by the body-worn cameras of the involved officers as well as the Reno Police Dispatch recording. Provide a limited.
Holy fuck, like 3 fucking minutes of just useless fucking talking.
On August 8, 2022 at approximately 10:49 a.m., officers were dispatched to the area of Kestrel Court and Kingfisher Drive on the report of a suspect armed with a knife and gun who was threatening a contractor. Drive on the report of.
Oh, never mind. I thought that said something else.
A suspect armed with a knife and gun who was threatening a contractor working at a residence in the area.
Alright, so a dude with a
9 a.m., officers were dispatched to the area of Kestrel Court and Kingfisher Drive on the report of a suspect armed with a knife and gun who was threatening a contractor working at a residence in the area.
So, a dude armed with a knife and a gun.
Same 287 and any other units, South unit able to secure and respond. It's going to be Kestrel Court. We have 1017 of threats. Suspect is RP's neighbor, which is in front of this location. Does have a 1032 in his waistband. Carrying a knife. It says actually knife on person, not in play. I'll double check that. White male, 40s, 5'8", medium build. Gray shirt, black shorts.
So the way he had said that, it says, and then he'll double check it. So dispatch centers are not the same everywhere here in the U.S. Some dispatch centers, the person taking the 911 call is the same person who does the dispatching to the police unit. Or they may be sitting right next to each other and they get to hear that 911 call, see the stuff popping up on the screen, and they're doing the dispatch, and it's updating right then and there. Other places, there will be like a 911 call taker, and it's like in a large room, or it could be a separate building, whatever. They take the call and then they forward it to the police dispatcher, and that's all that police dispatcher does is they just dispatch for the police, and they take these reports that were taken by someone else and they just dispatch them out. All they know is what's on that screen in front of them that's being updated by someone else. There's other places where the person who does the dispatching for the police also does the dispatching for the fire and the ambulance as well. It's all a little bit different everywhere you go. Some places can be kind of similar to each other, and then even within the same state, just a couple counties right next to each other, they could both do something that's just totally different from each other. There's some places where each individual entity has basically its own dispatch, and then there's places where there is one dispatch center that handles all the entities. So it sounds like from this one, this police dispatcher, the only way he has any information is what's on a screen in front of him that's being updated by someone else who could be in another part of the building or could be in a whole different building. And I think that that kind of creates just a little bit of a disconnect because it creates a time delay in them having to try and get information, up-to-date information. They're having to call someone back. They're having to reach out to someone. It's not live to them. So I don't think that's the best way for dispatching to be done. I think it's better when within the dispatch center that call taker is the one who is able to dispatch out that call, because they can stay up to date with that updated information. Now, with that being said, you have to take into consideration the call volume and the population. So, someplace like New York City, I don't know. I've never been inside a dispatch center in New York City. I have no idea how it's done, but I can only imagine that the call volume coming in is so high, it in some way has to be broken down like that, or even a place like Los Angeles. Just the amount of calls coming in, it may have to be in a way. It goes to this one person, they screen the call, and then they will send it to, the police dispatcher, the EMS dispatcher, the fire dispatcher, whatever. And they may have to be in separate buildings because there's just so many people involved. But with smaller towns, the model of the person taking the call and also being able to do the dispatching, I think that works out better because it's just better live updating on that.
Suspect told RP's contractor that's on scene to go inside because something's going to happen. Suspect lives in the residence to the rear of RP. He is carrying the knife.
The first responding officer checked the area but could not locate the suspect and subsequently met with the reporting party. While speaking to the reporting party inside their residence, the officer could see the suspect from a balcony window that overlooked the street. The officer went outside and approached the suspect, who was wielding a knife and armed with a handgun in his waistband. The officer placed the suspect at gunpoint and ordered him multiple times to drop the knife. The suspect did not respond to the officer's verbal commands and at one point began to advance on her while wielding the knife.
All right, so we'll go back to the little map that they showed. Boom, 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 boom. Well, it's around here somewhere. Well, all right. So I'll have to go through and find it. Just scrolling across the bar down here.
The district attorney's office.
It's not working.
In this police dispatch cameras only. On August 8th, to the area of Kestrel Court.
All right, so it is a. I don't know. I would kind of describe this as maybe kind of a subdivision looking kind of area. So Kestrel Court is kind of a small little road here, and reportedly the officer had checked the area. Now, I mean, there's not a whole lot to be checking around here, so I can only imagine that whenever she pulled in, she just kind of pulled in, maybe did a little loop around the cul-de-sacs, and then came back to the place where the 911 call had originated from. So, not much having to go search. So the dude probably went inside, could have been around the house or something like that. Not easily spottable.
While wielding the knife.
All right. So, mind you, this person has already drove around, checked the area. They have not been found. They're going to this call knowing that there is a person that has a gun.
287, he is no longer at the corner. I know where he is at this time. I'll be out with the victim. Where'd he go? Okay. No, I have a lot more coming. Do you know any direction that he went?
He's been, so...
Alright, so, like I said, she had just checked the area, did not find him, and then came back to where the 911 call originated from. She's come to this call knowing that there is a person that has a knife and a gun. So, one of my biggest complaints when it comes to these videos, or these incidents, is officers do not get their long guns out the way they should. If you are going to an incident that involves a person brandishing a weapon, having used a weapon, seen with a weapon, whatever, if you know that a weapon is being reported to have been seen, used, whatever, that then means that there is an increased risk or increased chance or likelihood that there could be a gunfight, especially if the person has been acting aggressive. If you know that, then you should work to increase your odds of success. You should think about how to increase the odds that you would be able to stop a violent encounter faster if it becomes a violent encounter. Pistols suck. They do. They suck ass. Rifles and shotguns are what dominate fights. They stop fights a lot faster. So if you know you're going to a gunfight or something that could involve a gunfight, bring a rifle and bring your friends with rifles. Rifles are more accurate at longer distances compared to a pistol because a pistol is a short barrel, very, very short barrel, and you only get 2 points of contact on that pistol, whereas with the rifle you can get more than 2 points of contact. Stabilizing the weapon, making it more accurate, and of course it having a longer barrel, it being more accurate. The terminal ballistics between the two are night and day. There are a lot of people who are walking around today who were shot with a pistol, but there are not a whole lot of people walking around today who were shot with a rifle. The terminal ballistics for a rifle are just devastating. I mean, the amount of damage it can do is just, it's a night and day difference between it and a pistol cartridge. And it will stop the violent fight faster. It may take 1 to 3 rounds from a rifle to stop a threat, whereas it may take 5 to 10 rounds of a pistol to stop a threat. Now, that's not saying always, but in general, that could be, a very accurate description. rifle it does a whole lot better job of stopping people. So, you know you're going to a call, you need to have your rifle out. It does not appear to me as though she had her rifle ready. What I recommend is before ever arriving on scene, you have your rifle out, meaning it's out of the carrying case, the carrying bag, it's out of the rifle mount, and it is charged, meaning you go around in the chamber, and the sling is either around your neck, so that it's in a one-point type of configuration, or wearing it like a damn necklace in a sense, so that when and it's dangling, right there between your legs, or right in front of your chest. That way, when you stop your vehicle and you dismount the vehicle, it's on you. It's right there. You don't have to reach over to the mount and hit the little magnetic button, unlock it, pull it out, charge it, and then get it to work. Or go around to the trunk, get it, charge it, put it to work. It's there. Or if you're not going to have it slung around you like that, then at least have it between you and the console. That way, as you're getting out, you put your hand on it and drag it with you. So that can mean that as you get this call and you're on your way to it, you can either pull off to the side of the road, get it out, hit the charging handle on it, load it up, sling it, stow it, whatever, and then proceed to the route. Or if it's up in the cab with you, it's in a lock or a mount. You just, as you're driving, if you think you can do this, while you're driving, you just reach over, hit the magnetic lock, pull the gun out, sling it, charge it, keep going. Then when you get there, when you dismount that vehicle, you've got that rifle ready to go at moment's notice. So she does not have a rifle ready at all. She gets her baton, but no rifle.
Where does he live?
we think he lives next door to this house.
Okay.
He came down inside their yard. I was unloading, and he's got a Glock or something stuck in his pants. He's in dark blue shorts and a gray muscle shirt,
Okay.
heavily tattooed with
White male?
black
Let's go
glasses.
up here. Museum 287, 1063, a further description.
Probably about 5'10".
White male, about 5'10", a lot of tattoos, wearing a gray muscle
Balding
tank
with black
and
glasses.
blue shorts. He's
Basketball
balding with
shorts.
black glasses. He possibly lives to the rear of this residence. Unknown if he returned there. He does have a .32 still in his waistband. Let's go inside, sir.
So he came down from up here.
Okay, can we go inside, please?
Yeah.
Hi. Let's go inside until we know where he is, please.
He went, just don't go that way. I don't know if he went back to the house.
Okay.
House-
What is this street right here?
This is
Kingfisher. What is this, like, east?
Alright, so I like how she has gotten the person to go inside the house. Get them out of the yard, get them into the house where they're a little bit more secure. Now, she didn't lock the door behind her, so if the dude was out there and he wanted to, he'd come straight through the front door, no problem. But she at least removed them, or removed that guy from the outside where he was more visible, more reachable, and put him inside the building, or put him inside the house where he was less visible, less easily approachable, making him a little bit more secure. So I like that.
Oh, he's outside. Museum 287, I see him out front of the residence again. I'm gonna make contact. Stay inside, please.
And she tells him to stay inside. Now, at this point, her vehicle is right there. Is there a chance or a possibility for her to go get her rifle? I don't know. I couldn't see what she could see through that window. She may have possibly seen him making a path coming towards this way, and she may have felt that she could not get to her vehicle and get the rifle out in time before he comes around the corner. So I can see that, which goes back to what I talked about earlier, having that rifle ready so that when you get out of the car, it's ready to go at moment's notice. She goes in and gets her guns out and goes to deal with the threat. She's slowly peeking around concealment there.
Reno, please, let me see your hands. Let me see your hands. Put your hands up. Drop the knife. Reno, police, if you come any closer, drop the knife. If you come any closer, drop it.
I am not.
Put your hands up.
I am not.
Put your hands up.
Sorry.
Put your hands up. If you come any closer, I'm going to have to shoot. And I don't want to do that.
Got it.
Put your hands up.
Now we're got it.
Put your hands up. He's armed with a knife. 32 still in his waistband, not complying. Put your hands up. If you come any closer, I'm going to have to shoot.
She's pretty cool, calm, and collected on the radio. Like, she's not showing any distress or anything like that when she's talking on the radio, which is pretty good compared to a lot of other people I've seen on some of these videos, especially when it comes to women. There's a lot of other videos I've seen where a lot of the female officers are just fucking going berserk and frantic on that radio. This is not the case with her. She's very cool, calm, and collective. And she is experiencing, you can tell, fight, flight, freeze syndrome effects as far as physiologically goes. You can tell on her arms here, the goosebumps are starting to appear. So that is a sign of fight, flight, freeze kicking in within the body. That is one of those physiological signs that is occurring.
A second officer arrived on scene, and both officers began trying to establish a rapport to de-escalate his actions. The suspect continued to pace around and began to walk away from the officers towards neighborhood homes. As he was walking away, the suspect transitioned the knife from his right hand to his left hand. Still ignoring all verbal commands to drop the knife, he then began to reach down toward his waistband with his right hand where the gun was located. Officers fired their service weapons at him, causing him to fall to the ground. During subsequent interviews with investigators, the involved officers said that they were concerned that the suspect was going to shoot at them or others in the neighborhood.
Put it down.
So for whatever reason, she gets back to this vehicle and she pulls the passenger side door open and then kind of stands next to it. I don't really fully understand why she's done this. Car doors do not offer good cover at all. They're not even cover. I mean, a bullet, a small bullet, even a .22 long rifle will easily pass through this door right there. Unless there's some type of up armor inside of it, some type of steel plating or something like that, it's going to go through it very easily, even something as small as a .22. So I don't really understand this standing behind the door thing. I think if she's wanting to use this vehicle as cover, the best option for her would have been to go to the rear of the vehicle. That way, from nose to tail of the vehicle, she has the most amount of material between her and the bad guy. That way, if he does start trying to fire rounds, then from the front of the vehicle to the tail of the vehicle, there's going to be a bunch of material that bullet is going to have to compete with to try and get through to get to her. Number one being the fucking engine block. Above that line, it starts going to the windshield and stuff, and if it goes to the windshield, it's going to go through maybe a headrest or a seat within the vehicle. It's going to go through the fucking cage of the vehicle. or that partition. And this being an SUV, it may have to go through a second kind of cage or partition, and then maybe through items that are in the back of the cargo hold, and then out that back windshield. So that's a lot of shit for a bullet to try and pass through and still have a lot of lethal energy once it makes it all the way through, if it even makes it all the way through at that point. So best way to utilize cover with the vehicle is try to use the entire vehicle itself, because just little parts of the vehicle are not stopping bullets. The doors, they're not stopping bullets. Unless it's got armor inside of it, it's not fucking stopping it. Something as small as a 22 long rifle will pierce right through it with no problem.
All victims are currently in the residence or out in the street in front. Drop the knife! Put the knife!
So, also at this point, if she had opened that passenger side door and there was a rifle up on the front cab of the vehicle, she could have taken either the opportunity herself to reach in and get that rifle out, or communicate to that officer, hey, I'm still providing cover, get your rifle out. That way, they can get a rifle into play, and if this thing turns kinetic, that rifle is going to dominate.
Down! What's your name? What's your name? Hey, what's your name? Let's just talk about it. I have no idea what's going on.
No one wants to hurt you, man. Put the knife down.
Pull your car.
Hey,
Come
put the
here.
knife down, man. Put the knife down.
He's got the gun in his waistband on the right side. Here! He's holding the gun!
He's down.
3CM287, shots fired.
I'll back it up.
He's down.
Here! He's holding the gun! 3CM287, shots fired.
So she was very deliberate with her shooting there. She didn't start firing rapidly or anything like that. She was taking well-aimed shots at this guy.
Hey, hold on.
Slow down.
Slow down.
Good, hold down.
Stable for 2 hours. Stable for 2 hours.
So he is rolling up on scene, and he's already got his gun out of the holster and ready for the fight. It's good fighting mindset right there. Unfortunately, I wish that he would have had a rifle ready instead, but at least he's got his gun out, and he was ready to start fucking doing the thing when he gets on scene if he needs to. Like, if he needs to pull up and it starts right there and he needs to start shooting through the windshield, well, it's going to happen a lot quicker than that. So he is ready.
Stable for 2 hours.
He is manipulating the gear selector with his non-dominant hand. It's another good thing. I've seen too many videos where officers have their gun out in their right hand or their dominant hand there, and they try to manipulate the gear selector with their gun hand with the gun in the hand. You don't ever want to do that. If that hand is holding that gun, then that's all that hand needs to be concerned about is operating that gun. You don't need to be taking that hand with the gun in it and trying to do anything else with it. Flipping switches and pushing up levers or pulling down levers or steering the wheel, like none of that shit. Like it needs to be devoted 100% to that gun.
Dude, stop. Stop. Put the knife down, man. Put it down. Why? No one wants to hurt you, man. Stop. Stop, dude. Put the knife down, man. Put it down, man. Put the knife down, man.
What's your name? Let's just talk.
So I couldn't see very well if there's a rifle up in the cab of the vehicle or not. It's kind of hard to say if there is.
What's your name?
I don't see anything on the ceiling. It's really hard to even see from this angle if there's anything between the seats or not. So he may not even have a rifle up in the cab of the vehicle. It could be in the back of his vehicle.
Let's just talk about it. I have no idea what's your name? Let's just talk about it.
Nope, sure shit. There is a fucking rifle up there, it looks like. Yeah, so that definitely looks like a rifle. Let me hit replay on that.
What's your name? Let's just talk about it. I have no idea what's going on.
Yeah, so rifle's right there, able to be put into play, but he neglects to get it out. So that's a fail on his part.
What's going on?
No one wants to hurt you, man. Put the knife down.
And it's not like I'm just, trying to single this guy out or anything. This is all across the board. Like, this is all across the fucking nation. Again, like, this is one of my biggest gripes when it comes to videos like this. Why is it like that? Let me back out to find a better freeze frame. So, why is it like that? I think it has a lot to do with training or a lack of good fighting type of training. So, I don't necessarily believe that the training that has been imparted on them has been of good, solid fighting mindset type of foundation. So I don't think that they've had a good fighting mindset type of curriculum presented to them, and I don't think that they have been fully, to the best way possible, had a fighting mindset developed. Now, I'm not saying they don't have a fighting mindset at all. I'm not saying that. I just don't think it's been crafted in such a way that it should be crafted. And if it was, then they would recognize the fact they need to get a fucking rifle out and put that rifle into play. So where is the failure within training? And why is it so widespread all across the country within law enforcement? You have to, I'm going to try to explain it, but it would almost be like someone trying to explain to me why there are certain failures within the trucking industry or the railroad industry. Like, I don't know shit about fucking trains or trucks, right? I don't know. I mean, I know a little bit, just little snippet things, but like as far as the nitty gritty stuff, like I don't know shit about them. You could be trying to explain some of the details of it and some of the nuances, but I'm not going to fully get it. So I could try to explain this, and if you don't have any experience in law enforcement, no experience in firearms instruction or training or anything like that, it may be a little bit, beyond you. You may not fully understand what the hell I'm talking about anyway, but I'm still going to make that attempt. So within the firearms training community, there's, and I'm talking in broad, like military, law enforcement, and citizens. There's really no national standard, so to speak. Not like there is with CPR. It doesn't matter what entity you go through with CPR. It could be American Red Cross, American Heart Association, etc. You can go to Europe and take one of their classes. Like, it's going to be mostly the same. Mostly the same. Firearms training, in some ways, some of the stuff may be similar, like the concept of aligning your sights and front sight focus and trigger control. That should be the same everywhere you go. But how it's presented, doing some of the drills and the intensity of some of the drills, that's going to vary. Just like within the CPR stuff, the intensity of how some of the drills are done may vary from place to place. Like these CPR instructors that put the mannequins on tables. Fuck that. Like, you're not going to be working code on someone on a fucking table. Like, that's not going to happen. They're going to be on the fucking ground. So, if you ever go to a CPR class and they do everything on the table, you got a shitty-ass instructor. Everything needs to be on the floor where you're going to be at. You're going to be on the floor in a real-world CPR scenario. So you've got instructors out there who are check-the-box type of instructors. They got their instructorship, and that's it. They've got it. They met that very bare minimum standard, and that's it. And so they can stay there for a long time, so long as they keep those minimum standards there. So, going back to the CPR instructor analogy, you got plenty of CPR instructors out there, like I said, who will put the mannequins on the table and everything will be from the table and all that. And they'll never interject any kind of realism into it or anything like that. And they'll just kind of cattle people through. Within firearms community, when you have like concealed carry instructors and stuff like that, a lot of them are bare minimum standards kind of people. They met that minimum requirement to get deemed to be an instructor, and the requirements were very low. There was not much to it at all. And a lot of concealed carry instructors don't really know what the fuck they're talking about. They regurgitate a bunch of stupid shit that they've heard. And they keep going and going and going because they're still able to meet that minimum requirement. It is very minimum. And they just haven't killed anybody in the process. Going into law enforcement, the requirements are a little bit higher, but they're still minimum. They really are. They're still minimum. There are civilian instructors out there who are 1,000,000 times better than police instructors. Not saying it's all across the board, but there are a lot of civilian instructors who would blow police instructors out of the water. Now, same military. There's a minimum requirement for someone to meet, and they meet it, and it's a very minimum requirement. So the problem is minimum requirements, but then too also there's kind of no 100% real good set standard on how the classes are conducted, some of the stuff to go over, etc. Within law enforcement, there is the issue of who becomes an instructor for an agency. So, a lot of times, the chief law enforcement officer or whoever he designates to be kind of in charge of, overseeing certain things, they will take a person who works inside the station, who works in the office, usually they're an officer themselves, they just hold a high rank. They will usually take a person like that and say, hey, we're going to send you to firearms school, or we're going to send you to taser school or pepper spray school, whatever. And they send them off. And the reason why they picked them is because they work in an office. And it's a lot easier, logistically, for them to schedule that person to teach a class, because that person, all they have to be concerned about is clearing their office schedule for a couple days to go conduct a class. They don't have to find someone to cover their shift. They don't have to worry about all this extra overtime kind of stuff or anything like that. Whereas if they took a street officer and sent them off, well, now that street officer is going to be out so many days from rotation, going to instructor school, and then when they come back, they're going to have to come off of patrol rotation so many times a year to teach classes. And so that means that someone is going to have to do the work to find someone to cover their shift while they're not out on patrol. They're going to have to worry about the budgeting of overtime. One, for that patrol officer to be out on an extra day working, teaching class, or if it's during their regular scheduled work time, but they're not on patrol, now they're going to have to worry about finding someone to go cover that spot out on patrol while they're teaching a class. So it's just easier with a lot of places for them to pick someone from the office and send them off, because you don't have to worry about finding someone to cover for them. And when they're not in their office, it's not like, it's a big critical hit on something. It's not like people are going to be suffering because the lieutenant is not in his fucking office. Whereas a street officer, you take one patrol guy off the street and you don't cover him or don't put anybody else in their place, well, that hurts. That makes it harder on everyone else, because call volume, someone's having to take up all those calls, short staff, etc. So you've got many places out there that just send office jockeys to instructor school. Do some of them become good instructors? Yeah. Do all of them? Fuck no. There's a lot of them that suck ass. They are not instructors. They may have an instructor title, but they're not teachers. So that is one thing that happens. When it comes to performance and everything, we think about it like that. Once these people get their instructorship, once they become, deemed a teacher, they get to keep that role until basically they decide they no longer want to do it and they want to go do something else. In a performance-based world, for example, a coach for a college football team or a national football team, that coach is going to have to perform. Like, that coach is going to have to produce results. They're going to have some wins. You can't go 10 years of major losses and still keep your job as a coach at a fucking national level sports team or a very high-end college sports team. That's just not going to happen. They're going to get rid of that person based on their performance. Unfortunately, that doesn't happen in the firearms instructor world, at least not with police or law enforcement, government type of stuff. And it doesn't really happen at all within the civilian market. So that's a big issue right there. And to be fair, it's kind of hard to really track that performance, so to speak, because in the analogy of the sports stuff, you've got sports teams that are making wins. They're bringing in awards and trophies and stuff like that. In the police world, as far as firearms go, police just aren't getting into that many gunfights. So at the local level, think about your local agency. When's the last time they've been involved in a gunfight? It's probably been a while. And if it was recent, then before that, it's probably been a while. And you may have 100 officers on your force, 200 officers on your force, you may have 50 on your force. And it may be years since they've ever been in a shooting. There are officers who go their entire career and never have to shoot anyone. How can you say an instructor did a really good job on teaching someone when that person never has to use their gun? It's kind of hard to say. Like, yeah, this guy did a really good job teaching this dude, even though we never got to see him perform. We never really got to truly see how good of a badass he was. So that's part of the problem there too. Is from real world engagements, they're just not fucking happening. And so you can't really gauge that way. Now, you could see it within reality-based training scenarios, having evaluators there to evaluate them. Like, all right, so they're doing pretty good in these force-on-force scenarios. That means who's been teaching them and everything's doing pretty good. If they miserably fucking fail and always get shot and killed during the force-on-force training, then that should be an indication that whoever's leading training sucks ass. Unfortunately, that just doesn't work like that. You don't have outside evaluators coming in, testing officers, putting them through force on force to see how well they perform, and then be like, all right, well, your instructors are good, or your instructors suck ass, this is where you need to improve. Like, that doesn't happen. But if it did happen, that would be one good way to be able to gauge an agency's training program. So you got a bunch of instructors or a bunch of officers who become instructors, and they get to keep their spot, and there's really no way to gauge whether or not they've been doing a good job with teaching their people. So that's one big part of the problem. And the other part of the problem, going back, again, isn't all instructor-based, is how good or not they conduct their training. So kind of going back to that CPR instructor analogy. If, they're doing the bare minimum and they're just doing like lazy shit, you're gonna not produce very good results out of that. So there are people who do firearms training that do it very bare minimum. They don't want to stay out there all damn day. They've been used to this office position. They got shit they want to do when they get home. They gotta, they're used to getting home at something o'clock in the afternoon and getting the kids and doing stuff. And now this damn fucking firearms class is going to make them stay a couple hours longer, potentially, if they do it the right way. They don't want to fucking do that, so they start cutting corners. And you're like, yeah, you guys know this stuff, right? Yeah, all right, we'll skip through this. Yeah. And they end up doing that shit, and they get on the range, and they don't fully 100% go at it like they should. They half-ass it. And then they get done quicker. What should have been a fucking 4 or 6 hour continuing education class ends up being like an hour or two, and they get out there quick. That should never happen, but it does. So there's that part of the issue right there, and then like the realism in some of the training. So in particular with the rifle training, when you think about pistol training and you're on the range and you've got your pistol in your holster and that's how you start your drills, that's realistic because you could be anywhere with your handgun in your holster and beep, you start the fight from the holster. That's realistic. It is not realistic, in my opinion, to be starting on the shooting line with a rifle in your hand. Because you're never going to do that. You're not going to be walking around with a rifle in your hand and beep, shooting time. That's unrealistic. It's not like Call of Duty where you just fucking spawn out of nowhere and you got a damn rifle in your hand. That's not going to happen. And so I think there is a loss of good realistic training with rifles, and I think that when it comes to rifle training, students need to be starting where they'll be when it's time to get a rifle. They need to be in their car. If the rifle is in the magnetic lock thing, well, that's how they need to start with that rifle drill. They need to start in the car, hit the button to disengage the lock, grab the rifle out, charge it, dismount from the vehicle, go up to the shooting line, and then commit shooting. or if it's in the cargo hold or the trunk, whatever, then you get out, go back there, get it, go to the line, and start the drill from there. That doesn't happen. Why does that not happen? Because that takes extra time. No one wants to be spending all this extra time on the range. Well, some people do. People who are very interested in training. Lazy people who just want to blow through shit because it's a requirement and they just want to check the box. Well, they don't want to stay out there very long, so they don't do that shit. Lost my train of thought there. So I think that starting off the rifle training like that is something that should be done. That way you're building in that muscle memory of doing that thing, of having to reach over, hit the little button, get the rifle out, and getting it out, and then putting it into the fight. That way, when you do those repetitions, it's going to be something that your body is used to doing multiple times, and you'll become more likely to do it. The other thing with that is just that fighting mindset. Pointing out that, hey, your pistols suck ass. You need to be getting rifles out when it comes to gunfights. I think that's probably something that's lost a little bit within the law enforcement firearms training in a lot of places. I just don't think they instill that mindset in people. Another contributing factor is the fact that, like I said, police are not getting in the gunfights every single day. Day in, day out, they just fucking talk to people, write reports, and that's it. They get out of the car. A lot of times they don't have to pull their handgun out of their holster. If they do have to pull a gun out of their holster, it's very short, and it's just to order people to do stuff, and then that's it. And they don't ever have to end up shooting people. Another contributing factor in some places is administration and restrictive policies in regards to long guns. So there are some places out there that say that if an officer gets their shotgun out and they rack that pump, or they get their rifle out of their car and they charge that handle and they start walking around with it, they have to notify a supervisor that they've got their rifle out. They have to write a report anytime they get their rifle out and charge it. Those are bullshit policies that are restrictive policies and are dangerous policies. Officers don't want to write fucking reports on top of all the other damn reports that they're going to have to be writing throughout a normal shift. So if they know they have to write a damn report when they get a rifle out, do you think they're very likely to get a rifle out on a call when they knew the last 3 times that, they could have got a rifle out, nothing ever happened? No, they're probably not going to get it out because they don't want to fuck around with paperwork and do stupid shit. So they're not going to get the rifle out. But, all right, if something happens, I got my pistol, I can take care of that. That's wrong. That's putting officers in danger when you create policies like that. And they intentionally create policies like that to prevent officers from getting their rifles out, to minimize any type of accidents that may occur, or minimize scaring the public, because they don't want to hear any more complaints about officers getting out of the car with a shotgun and racking the fucking pump. There are some places where officers have to write a report if they pull their taser out and only point it at someone. Why are we telling officers to write reports if they point their taser at someone but never shoot it? That's dumb. There are some places that are telling officers they have to write a report if they pull their handgun out of their holster. That's fucking dumb. Those are restrictive policies put in place by shitty-ass leaders that end up creating the opportunity for officers to become seriously physically injured and or killed. Because they're going to default to the lazy stuff. Like, oh, well, I got to write a report if I pull my taser out. I'll just keep that thing in there. I'll just keep yelling at this person. Oh, they're getting really close to me. Well, I still don't want to write this report. I'll continue yelling at them. And then they get assaulted and seriously physically hurt. Whereas if they had that fucking taser out to begin with, they could have gained red dot compliance. But they didn't want to have to sit at the end of this call and already have a bunch of calls waiting, stacked for them to have to go to, knowing they're probably going to have to write reports for that. Now, on top of that, they're going to have to write a stupid fucking report about why they had to pull a taser and point it at someone. The other thing, now, I think I remember I lost my train of thought of that. The other thing with firearms training, unrealistic rules or safety rules for shooting ranges. So, the part where I talked about where I thought it would be more realistic for officers to start from their vehicle, charge the rifle while in the vehicle or outside the vehicle, and then get to the line. That's not going to happen in a lot of shooting ranges, even police ranges, because they have these unrealistic rules, these safety rules, where they say that you can only have a loaded gun on the shooting line. So there's a lot of police ranges where police officers are told when they get to the range, they don't need to have a loaded gun. They cannot be walking around with a loaded gun. The only time their gun can be loaded is when they're on the shooting line and they are actively shooting their gun. When they get done shooting, they have to empty their gun and walk around with the magazine out of the gun and the slide locked to the rear inside the holster. I shit you not that they're told they have to do that for safety reasons. Makes no fucking sense whatsoever. Because when they leave, what are they doing? They're walking around with loaded guns. So that, when you think about that, that literally means that there is a police officer somewhere in this nation who is a school resource officer. And their job is to stay in a school. They walk around school all day. They go to the cafeteria. They're in the library. They're in classrooms. They've got a loaded gun with them around kids all damn day. No problem with that. But by God, if you show up to the shooting range with a loaded gun, you're a fucking safety concern. That's fucking stupid. That makes no sense whatsoever. Why, how is it you can trust this officer to walk around in the school with a loaded gun, but the minute he shows up to this fucking shooting range, he has to have it emptied for safety reasons? Fucking retarded. So, that kind of mindset is what plagues our firearms training community, and in particular with the law enforcement. It is not realistic at all. So, when I say that the training is not realistic and it doesn't instill a good fighting mindset, those are the things that go into what I'm talking about. And it's very dangerous. Very, very dangerous. Very, very dangerous precedent to be setting. And a lot of people don't even realize that. They think that everything is great, hunky-dory, normal, everyday routine, and this is the best shit since sliced bread they're getting. There are so many fucking cops out there who go to the academy and get back, and they do their one-time qualification a year and shit, and they think that they are fucking goddamn Army Delta operators. They think they are the fucking cream of the crop fucking ninjas when it comes to their firearms training. They're not. They are not at all. There are some nerdy-ass IT geeks out there. There are some insurance sales people out there. There are car mechanic people out there who pay out of pocket to go to commercial firearms training school. They go to shooting competitions, etc. And they are 1,000 times fucking better than their local police officers when it comes to shooting and stuff. So yeah, long rant on training or a lack of realistic fighting mindset type of training. But I hope that kind of helps you understand what I mean by all that.
What's your name? Let's just talk about it. I have no idea what's going on.
No one wants to hurt you, man. Put the knife down. Hey, put the knife down, man. Put the knife down.
He's got the gun in his waistband on the right side.
I'm about to pull the trigger, man.
Hey, come
Which
here.
house is his?
He's come up.
Shots fired.
Officers approached the suspect and removed the knife and handgun, which were located next to him on the ground. Officers immediately began to render medical aid and called for emergency medical services to respond. The suspect was subsequently transported to a local area hospital and was treated for his injuries. No residents or officers were injured during this incident.
Slow down.
He's got the gun underneath him.
Okay. Hey, you two take left. We'll take left.
I got left.
We're good.
I got left. Slow down. Still breathing. Still
We're
breathing.
good. You want me to take point?
Hey, stay inside! Inside now! Sir, put your hands out!
Put your hands out.
Put your hands!
You got comms.
Hey,
I'll glove up. I'll glove up.
Back that real quick.
You got comms.
put your hands out!
Put your hands out.
Put your hands!
You got comms.
Okay, so he calls out an individual officer and tells them they've got comms. So comms is short for communications. And what he's doing, he's telling an officer that they're going to be responsible for talking on the radio. I like that. I've talked about that in some other videos where there's multiple officers on scene and everyone is just trying to talk on the fucking radio and they're over talking on each other. They're repeating the same shit that someone else has already said. They're wasting airtime. They're wasting time. They're taking their full attention off the threat and trying to talk on this radio. So I'm a huge believer and advocate that if you've got multiple people on scene, someone needs to be designated as the radio guy. The radio operator, the commo guy, whatever, whatever you want to call it. Their function, their sole purpose during this whole fucking ordeal is to take over communications. That way, everyone else can stay 100% task focused on the threat in front of them. And that person who's going to be operating the radio is going to be giving updates to dispatch, to incoming units. If dispatch, let's say that guy who said that says, hey, you got comms. Let's say he's a supervisor. He's a sergeant. If dispatch is calling out for that supervisor, then that person operating that radio will say, go ahead for him. That way that supervisor ain't got to fuck around with the damn radio while he's trying to stay 100%. And if it's a question that officer who's operating the radio can answer because they know what the answer is, then they can go ahead and do that. If it's something else that needs to come from that supervisor, then they can shout out to that supervisor, hey, dispatch wants to know if you want such and such to come here, or wants to know if we need to call next shift, come in early, whatever. Then they can reach out, just shout out to that supervisor what the question is, and then get back on the radio and relay that to whoever needs to be having that relayed to. So I like that. Designate one person to become the radio operator. That way everyone else can stay task focused on the problem at hand.
Hey,
I'll glove up. I'll glove up.
hands out the side.
Where's the gun?
I have no gloves. I have no gloves.
Okay.
Alright, so she says she has no gloves. You should always have gloves on you. At least nitrile or latex gloves. Actually, I believe it should just be nitrile gloves because there's so many people out there who have latex allergies that nitrile is really the best, safest option to go with. So you should always have a pair of those kind of gloves on you. There are glove pouches that go on the duty belt, go in the small of the back. Perfect place to put that since you're not really supposed to put anything in the small of the back anyway, at least not a big cuff case or anything like that. So a little small glove pouch could go there, not take up a whole lot of room, and not hurt you when you fall down. So there's one way to carrying it. Pockets, keep gloves in there, whatever. You need to have a set of those gloves on you at all times. You never know when you're going to have to deal with someone with bodily fluids on them. You never know when you're going to have to pick something up that's got some yucky stuff on it. You don't know if you're going to have to handle something that is potential evidence. You don't want to add your fingerprints to it or add your DNA to it, whatever. So always have gloves on you. Now, I like that she is aware of her surroundings, and she sees a pair of gloves sticking out of a dude's pocket or from his belt, and she reaches out and takes that shit. So it's like she's switched on. Like, she's a better female officer than what I've seen in some of these other videos with female officers. Like, there's some videos that show female officers, they're like a fucking chicken with their head cut off. They're like, just frantic, don't know what the fuck to do, indecisive, whatever. Like, not the case with this chick. Like, she's fucking switched on.
Grab those.
I got
You want to grab it? Stop, man! Stop! Go in your house.
Someone watch that house. Don't move, dude. Do not move.
Gun down.
So, knife, and then the gun.
Yeah, you grab the gun too. I'll get it.
I got the plus.
No gloves.
No.
Who's that hook here?
So, it seems like to me that she had the intention of just laying those off to the side, and then she makes a very abrupt movement to pick them back up. Now, I can only assume that she's having in her head, well, this is evidence, and these are weapons that if he starts fighting, he could try to go for. So now I need to take possession of these and move them far away from him and maintain chain of custody over this evidence that I've now taken possession of. So I'm assuming that's probably what has popped in her head since she made that such abrupt change in what seemed to be a course of action.
Hey, stay left, stay right.
We're good. We're good.
Slow down, slow down.
He's got the gun underneath him.
Yeah. Hey, you two take
I got it.
I got
we're,
left. I got left.
We're good.
I got left. Slow
We're
down.
good.
Still breathing. Still breathing. Hey, stay inside!
Get inside the house.
What the? Oh, let me back that up.
We're good.
I got left. Slow
We're
down.
good.
Still breathing. Still breathing. Hey, stay inside!
So fucking woman's coming outside. What the hell's going on?
Inside the house.
Sir, put your hands out! Put your hands out! Show us your hands!
Someone glove up.
Got palms. Hey,
That's
sir,
right, Reno.
put your hands out to the side. Where's the gun?
Guns underneath his legs. Guns underneath his legs.
He's agonal. He's agonal. Grab those. You want to grab?
So it sounded like he said in the background, he's agonal. He's agonal. So agonal, that could be a reference to him saying that he's got agonal breathing going on. Agonal breathing is just a medical term to describe how a person is breathing. It's not good breathing. Like, you don't want to ever hear a family member described as having agonal breathing, because it's not good breathing that over time is going to keep you alive. Like, if someone has gone into agonal breathing, it's just a matter of time before they go into respiratory arrest.
Stop, man! Stop! Go in your house.
Someone watch that house. Don't move, dude.
He's not.
Do not move.
Gun down, gun down. Yeah, you grab the gun too. I'll get him a cuff.
I got the plus.
No gloves going. Keep that hook here.
Go ahead.
So he's saying someone watched the house. You hear a person in the background, and it sounded like earlier during this interaction, the woman said, "Keep your put your hands out, Brandon," or something like that. So that could be a family member of this person that's in that background yelling and stuff, and you have no idea what that family member is capable of. You know, they could have just now seen their family member being killed by the police, and now they're going to fucking go act as batshit crazy as the person who caused the police to have to shoot them. And they can come out with a weapon and start popping rounds off. Never have any idea. So I like how they want to maintain scene security and have someone watch that potential avenue of threat over there, because obviously there's a person over there yelling, making a bunch of noise, not following instructions. They told them multiple times to go back in the fucking house. And they seem to possibly be talking to this person, may possibly be connected to them in some way. So they could, like I said, flip their shit and now become a problem. So they're posting someone up to maintain security, watch these guys back while they're down on the ground going hands-on with this dude and trying to gain control over him.
Sam 297. Send in Remza.
Further investigation revealed that the suspect was carrying a 5-inch fixed-blade knife and a replica handgun. The Sparks Police Department is the investigating agency for this incident, and the involved officers were placed on administrative leave during this ongoing investigation. The Sparks Police Department identified the suspect as Brandon Allan and determined he was a resident of the neighborhood. He was arrested for obstructing and resisting with the use of a firearm, possession of a firearm by a prohibited person, and a probation violation.
In the coming months, the Reno Police Department's Office of Internal Affairs will review all relevant information from this case and will make a determination as to whether the officer's tactics, drawing and use of a deadly weapon, and use of force were within the policy and standardized procedures of the Reno Police Department. Those findings will be submitted to the Chief of Police for review in accordance with Reno Police Department policy. This body-worn camera footage has been made available as a summary of events to keep our community informed. Any additional camera footage will be made available at the conclusion of the formal investigation. The Reno Police Department and its officers take incidents such as these seriously and treat them accordingly. For questions or additional information regarding the Reno Police Department or our policies, please visit
Alright, so not much else to see from that. We'll go back to the footage itself. Alright, so he's walking away from them, and knife in one hand, handgun visible in the waistband. He switches the knife from one hand to the other and is reaching down to his gun. And as they noted, the officers were in fear that he was going to pull his gun out and start shooting, although he was walking away from them with his back turned. I've talked about before in other videos when people get shot in the back, people seem to have some big problem with this. I have absolutely no problem whatsoever with the idea of a person being shot in the back. This person, although it ends up being an airsoft gun, there's no way to know that in the moment, right? Like, you can't tell if that's an airsoft gun from this distance, and even if it was up close, they probably wouldn't have been able to tell at that point either if it was real or not. Action can generally beat reaction. So if you have ever played like an action-reaction kind of game where, for example, you take both your hands and you hold them out, palms facing the ground, and another person takes their hands and they hold them out and they have their palms under your palms. So your palms are facing to the ground, their palms are facing the sky, but facing your palms. That person is the one who gets to initiate action. They will quickly take their hands out from under yours and smack the shit out of the top of your hands. That's their goal, right? The majority of the time, they will be able to do that before you can react and jerk your hands away to avoid having your hands slapped. So action beats reaction. That's generally the case. Like, most of the time, the person who gets to initiate that action has the advantage. They get to win, so to speak. They get to achieve something first before that person can ever react to it and stop that person from doing something. So, while he's walking away and he's reaching down to his gun, if he got that gun, he could have very quickly spun around and started shooting and sent rounds downrange to those officers and potentially hit one of them before they could ever pull the fucking trigger and return fire. when it comes to a person having a knife and they're within the distance of 21 feet of a person, this is often referred to as the 21-foot rule. It's really known as the Tudor drill. But a person with a knife can close the distance of 21 feet and be on top of another person, slashing and stabbing, before that other person can ever pull their gun out of the holster and put incapacitating rounds on target. 21 feet. I mean, that's not like the biggest distance in the world, but that's still a decent distance. A person can cover that distance before you can ever get your gun out and shoot them. And when these drills are done, when they're performed, these are drills where the person knows it's coming. They know that the other person is about to initiate contact, and they have the responsibility to, or the task to pull their gun out and put a round on target before they can get to them or cover a distance. So there's a few different ways of doing it. One way is to do force on force, put everyone in protective gear, and get a marking gun out, a ammunition gun, and have 21 feet of distance away, have the person with a fake knife and have the person with a sim gun in the holster and everything, and then that person with the knife is the one who gets to choose when to initiate contact. So they'll, boom, start off and they'll run out towards that guy with the sim gun, and majority of the time, they're on top of that dude before that dude ever gets his damn gun out and can pop rounds off. Another way of doing it is you have people start with their backs to each other, and the person with the knife will start running and they'll run away, and the person with the gun will stand there and they'll aim, shoot the target, and when that person running hears that gunshot, they'll stop or they'll drop something the moment they hear it, and then you'll measure the distance from that shooter's back to that object and see, how far it was. Another way of doing it, which is not done in a lot of places because, firearm safety rules, you'll have a person on the shooting line, and then the other person will be downrange of that person of the gun, not directly in front of them, but they'll be, like 15, 20 feet off to the side, but they'll be 21 foot distance from shooting line to target line, right? So you have your paper target 21 feet away from the shooter, and then like 15, 20 feet down the line away from them is a person who's at the target line with an object, and they get to initiate action, and when that shooter notices that movement, they've got to pull their gun out and get sights on target and put an incapacitating round within the X, bullseye of that target. And a lot of times, when that person takes off running and they hear that gunshot, that's when they're supposed to drop an object or stop. And when that happens, a lot of times what you'll see is they're like well past 21 feet. Like they're fucking another 21 feet behind the shooter. Like they've covered 40 fucking feet before this person was able to ever get their gun out of the holster and put it around in target. So, again, that's action beats reaction, and that's coming from people who they know it's coming. They know that this dude is going to start moving at some point. Like they're ready for it, and they still can't get the damn gun out fast enough and do anything about it. So with action beating reaction most of the time, this is perfectly acceptable to me. They've given him several verbal commands. The dude has spoken English. They know there's not a language barrier there. Like, he understands what the fuck they're talking about. He's communicated to them that he basically understands what they're saying, but he's refusing to do it. He turns around. He has reportedly already threatened people at this house. He turns around, he starts walking away. He transitions a weapon that he's holding with what is presumably his dominant hand. He transitions that out to clear his hand and then reaches down for the gun. any reasonable person would believe this dude's about to grab this gun and start fucking shooting. So yeah, they acted appropriately. They acted in protection of themselves and protection of other people. They were protecting the people in this neighborhood when this dude did this. Because if he did just turn around and start shooting at the officers, well, yeah, they're going to need to defend themselves, but rounds are missed during gunfights. And so he could be firing and his rounds go past them and then go into the house behind them and hit people. So they are, in essence, taking actions not just to protect themselves, but they're taking actions to protect the people in this neighborhood. Because this dude, by his actions alone, this dude's about to make shit go kinetic. And I believe they acted appropriately. They did not do anything wrong. They did not violate this dude's rights in any way. This dude brought this shit upon himself. He played a fucking stupid game and he won a stupid prize. So no problem with them using force the way they did. Now, as far as their local prosecutors and stuff like that, if they're going to see the same, or if they're going to pass this on to their grand jury, and whether or not people in the community who make up that grand jury, whether they're going to see that the same way, I don't know. That's the thing that sucks about juries. You've got a lot of people who are stupid, and they end up getting on juries. I've been called to jury duty a couple times, and the people I've seen there, some of them, they look like they were the type to have extreme fucking difficulty chewing bubble gum and walking at the same time. And that's scary. That really is. That is a scary fucking thing to think about. Like, a lot of people say, I'd rather be judged by 12 than carried by 6. Fuck, dude, I don't know about that. like that, being judged by 12 can be almost the same as fucking being carried by 6. Like, there's some people who are sitting in prison right now because of fucking misguided, stupid-ass prosecutor plus stupid-ass jurors put them there. Mostly the jurors, because they don't understand shit. Like, they don't understand this stuff. They're just regular, just stupid people. And that's scary. That's really scary to think about. And especially right now with law enforcement, being under attack by so many fucking dumbass liberals and a bunch of cop-hating bastards. There are some places here in the country where officers used legal, justifiable force, and they're still persecuted, basically. I mean, it's bullshit. So hopefully these officers don't run into any problems with some dumbass prosecutor or some dumbass members of the community sitting on jury duty. I think everyone else, who's had training and experience and stuff would recognize, like, hey, this is a justified shoot. Like, this guy was visibly a threat to them and the rest of this neighborhood. When they get up to him, and again, I talked about gloves. You should always have gloves on you because of body substance isolation. You should always assume that people have something. Like, they've got the worst thing imaginable. They've got AIDS, HIV, hepatitis, whatever. Assume they've got it. Do not touch them until you've got gloves on. They are cuffing this guy up after he's been shot, although he does appear to be incapacitated. He doesn't appear to be moving around or anything like that. He has this appearance of possibly even being unconscious. And a lot of people seem to have some kind of issue with that as well. Like, oh, they're cuffing a dead guy, blah, 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 blah. There are many times where people have been shot and then they get back up. I'm not talking zombie shit. When you are dealing with handguns, that's a reality. So there's a famous case that is referenced a lot within the firearms training community, especially within law enforcement. It is the FBI Miami shootout back in the 1980s with a couple of bank robbers. FBI went to initiate felony traffic stop on a couple of bank robbers. and a gunfight broke out. One of the robbers took a gunshot to the head, and it temporarily knocked him out. He then woke back up during the middle of this gunfight, crawled out of his car, and got into the vehicle of an FBI agent and attempted to take off in that vehicle before he was shot again and put down. His buddy shot very early on in the gunfight. The first round to hit him was a round that had end up being fatal in time. It just did not immediately incapacitate him right then and there. He took that first round into the side. Round landed within his heart area. And then after that, he took multiple more hits from FBI agents. He shot in the arms, his leg, foot area. He took multiple hits from other weapons, and he continued to fight. There were no drugs found in their system. They were as sober as could be. They just had a fighting mindset, and they were shot with pistol rounds. And that's one of the things about pistol rounds, is they're just not that powerful. And there's a lot of people who've gotten back up after being shot with a pistol, which is why I go into that rant all the time when it comes to videos like this and no one has a fucking rifle out. Pistols suck ass. Cannot stress that enough. Pistols fucking suck. The only good thing about pistols is they can incapacitate. Generally, it just takes more rounds to do so. And since they can work, they're a good thing to be able to carry for in an emergency if something were to happen suddenly and rapidly. And you can carry that thing. You can carry that thing all damn day, and it's comfortable and convenient. Right? You can go all day with a holstered handgun and not think anything of it. 8, 10, 12, 16 hours out of the day, no problem. Try doing a couple hours carrying a rifle around. That shit gets annoying real quick. That sling starts digging into your neck, hurts like a motherfucker. Just always constantly having to adjust the damn thing. Like, fucking, always fucking with it, right? Like, trying to get it adjusted, get that damn sling off your neck. And then when it is slung, the muzzle bumps into shit, the stock bumps into shit. Depending on how kind of sling configuration you got on, slapping in between your knees, hitting your nuts, the sling's catching on your duty belt pouches, or catching on your taser or whatever. Like, it fucking sucks carrying a rifle around for any length of time, especially in a patrol uniform. So, yeah, that plus the fact that police are not being involved in gunfights every single day. That's why handguns were carried. You're not getting gunfights every day. They're comfortable and convenient to carry, and if you need it in an emergency, it can work. It's not the best thing, but it can work. So that's why I always rant about that and them neglecting to get rifles out. Like, you've got to start getting rifles out on these type of calls. The amount of rounds that they fired. So they fired multiple rounds. I don't know how many rounds they fired in total. But out of all those rounds they fired, how many actually hit the guy? I don't know that answer. But I do know from studying these use of force incidents that generally rounds are missed in a gunfight. Not saying it's acceptable, it's, hey, whatever. But I'm just saying that's a fact. Like, rounds are missed. And this guy was not at a super close distance to them. He wasn't a football field away or anything, but he was at a far enough distance where, you could make those hits with a pistol, but it'd be a whole lot better if they had a rifle or a shotgun to make those hits at that distance. And if one of them had a rifle, I firmly believe that they could have fired 1 or 2 rounds and that dude would have dropped and would have been incapacitated at that point. whereas they fired multiple pistol rounds and they had to, fire multiple times in order to get him to drop and no longer be a threat. I think if they had a rifle, that interaction would have been a lot shorter and it would have required less rounds to achieve that. Not much else to say about this video. If you like what you hear and see, go ahead and give me a like and a share. If you haven't already, hit the subscribe button and stay tuned for more Monday quarterback videos. Earl Henderson, Primordial Defense, thank you for watching.